So hello again, and thank you for joining us. My name is Christy McGackran. I'm a program manager here at McMaster Continuing Education. I'm here today with Stephanie Kirsta, our instructor for the new Sleep for Health and Wellness program. For our time together today, I'll give a brief overview of the program, its structure and schedule, and then I'll hand it over to Stephanie to talk about tips and tricks on how to improve the quality of your sleep. We'll look at a number of easy to implement strategies that you can start using right away to help you sleep better. And then we'll end with a question and answer session. But before we begin, please note this webinar is being recorded. If you have any questions, feel free to use the Q&A box and we'll address them at the end. I'm excited to have this opportunity to talk to you today about our new Sleep for Health and Wellness program. It launched this past spring, and both of the courses are fully online, led by an instructor. Sleep is so important to our well-being, and whether you're interested in this program to improve your own sleep or that of family members, or to learn more about helping your clients, this program has been designed to meet those needs. The program will explore the science behind sleep, the effects of not getting enough sleep. It looks at the best practices for sleep, and it also explores interventions for treating sleep issues and disorders. This program is an excellent enhancement to existing education, professional experience, or for personal wellness. So we do have two courses, and the courses can be taken in any order, but it's recommended that you start with Understanding Sleep for Health and Wellness if possible. This course looks at the science behind sleep, why we need it, what happens when we don't get enough. It'll discuss sleep hygiene, best practices, and it will end with how to plan first-line sleep strategies. The second course focuses on sleep issues and disorders. We'll look at the factors that impact sleep issues and the various interventions and treatments that are commonly used. We'll also look at how to create a formal treatment plan to address these issues. At the completion of each course, you'll be granted a micro-credential. The micro-credential is issued in digital form. It includes details of the skills and the specialized knowledge that you've acquired. And because it's digital, it's shareable, making it easy to add to your resume, LinkedIn profile, and to share with current or prospective employers. Completion of both micro-credentials earns a certificate of completion. So the courses are delivered online through our learning management system, and this is where you'll access the content, interact with your fellow learners and instructor. Each course runs over a 6-week period. The modules include elements such as group discussions, videos, resources, applications to guide you through the content. Several live sessions are also held through Zoom. These sessions are highly recommended, but they are recorded for those who are unable to attend. This is a non-credit, personal professional development program. And although formal academic written papers are not required, you will be assessed through formats such as quizzes, group discussions, activities, and short assignments. The program is open enrollment, so simply go to our website and register directly online. Both courses are running in each the fall and winter term coming up. They're set to run one after another, so you can take both back to back if you'd like to finish them in one term. The enrollment is now open. The course fee is $325. There is no HST. It is now my pleasure to introduce you to Stephanie Kirsta. Stephanie's formal education specialized in psychology. She holds a number of certifications, including cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, a postgraduate certificate in addictions and mental health counseling, advanced training in solution-focused therapy, attachment therapy, and psychometric assessments. Stephanie has also earned several evidence-based holistic certificates, including certifications in mindfulness and meditation. Stephanie teaches at several post-secondary institutions. She has a clinical psychotherapy practice where she primarily treats anxiety, depression, self-esteem, and insomnia. She regularly provides workshops and training sessions on stress, wellness, sleep, and mental health. So I'll hand it over to Stephanie.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Christy. So today we're going to be talking about just ways that we can improve our sleep and improve our quality of sleep, and thus also just talking a little bit about the role that sleep plays in our health and wellness. And so just wanted to talk a little bit predominantly around the science behind sleep. And I won't get too much into it. I tend to, so I'm going to try and control myself and just get into it a little bit. And so if we think about sleep, everyone generally will say like sleep is important. We all know that sleep is important. All of you have taken an hour out of your day to learn about sleeping better because we all recognize that sleep is very important. And sleep is really a vital biological process. It is something that impacts multiple systems in our body, multiple functions in our body, and really it's helpful for recovery. The way that I like to think about sleep is like just like you charge your electronics every night, we need to recharge ourselves every night. And that's because the wear and tear of the day, things that go on through the day, things that go on through our brain throughout the day, all the cognitive functions that happen throughout our waking hours, we need time to A, recover from them, but then B, our brain needs to do what it needs to do to turn, those things that we've experienced throughout the day, those memories, those experiences, it needs to figure out what to do with them. And so there's really four main processes that happen during sleep. The first one, which I alluded to, is memory consolidation. So essentially what happens when we sleep at night is our brain goes to work and it thinks about, okay, what needs to turn into a short-term memory, what needs to turn into a long-term memory, and then what do we not have to remember? And that is our brain working to consolidate memories. There's so much information that we experience in a day that we're never going to be able to remember all of that. And so our brain does a really good job of trying to filter all that. I think about it as like our internal filing cabinet. The other thing that happens when we sleep is that we remove waste from the brain. And what that is again, as our brain, as we go through different cognitive effects, like different cognitions throughout the day, different experiences throughout the day, our brain has, some like byproducts that come. And so it's a way, again, very unscientific way of describing it, but it's like our brain, it's a way to clean up the areas of the brain. The next one is energy conservation. If you think about sleep from an evolutionary perspective, when we sleep, our body kind of downgrades or kind of down powers itself. We don't need to we don't burn as many calories. We don't need to consume as many calories. We're not exuding the amount of energy that we generally would during our waking hours. So that, from an evolutionary perspective, that was a way for us to, when resources were scarce, to be able to not use all of our resources. If we never slept as humans, we'd be eating, 5, 6, 7,000 calories a day. We would require that for that time. And so um, by sleeping, it's a way for us to conserve our own internal energy. And then lastly is cellular repair and tissue growth. And really, again, it's that restoration and recovery. If you think about anyone who's had surgery or if you're ill, sleep is, everyone says sleep is the best medicine. And really what's happening there is that our body is repairing our cells, allowing tissues to grow. Our body's at rest, and so everything can do what it needs to do uninterrupted. While we're sleeping, the brain goes through four different stages. And so I want to talk a little bit about some of the different sleep stages when we're sleeping. So there's four stages. Oftentimes people will hear about REM sleep. And a lot of people talk about REM sleep being the best sleep and the most important sleep. Or if you have any fitness trackers, your fitness tracker will tell you how much sleep that you get. There's the way that we categorize sleep stages is through non-REM sleep, so non-rapid eye movement sleep, which is essentially your eyes when you're in REM sleep or rapid eye movement sleep, your eyes are rapidly moving. And so non-REM sleep is when we're more still. Stage 1, 2, and 3 are in that phase. Stage 3 is actually the deep restorative sleep. So when people talk about restorative sleep, good sleep, deep sleep, they're actually referring to stage 3 sleep. So stage 3 non-REM sleep, not stage 4, which is REM sleep. So there tends to be a little bit of confusion around the amount of REM sleep and the REM sleep being the deepest sleep that there is. Stage 3 is actually the sleep that's going to make us feel more alert and more awake in the day. When I talk about sleep quality, I also want to talk about, like, when we think about sleeping well or sleep quality, there's two things at play here. The first one is the duration that we sleep, right? So it's the amount of hours that you are actually sleeping in the night. The second one is the quality of sleep that you're getting. The quality of sleep is that you're getting the right amounts in each of the stages of sleep. Every stage is essential. So it's not like it's like, oh, 1 and 2 are kind of like, not important. I need 3 and 4 only. Every stage is important to get to the next stage. And we cycle through each of the stages. Some people, when they have poor quality of sleep, they're maybe not getting as much stage 3 or stage 4 sleep. So stage 3 or the REM sleep, maybe they're in the more kind of lighter stages of sleep, thus not feeling as rested or as kind of alert the next morning. And there's lots of things. There's different sleep disorders that can do that. There's also lifestyle things that can prevent us from getting into those stage 3 and 4 sleep, which we'll talk about today. So it's just important to recognize that when we're thinking about improving sleep quality, we want to improve the time that's being spent in stage 3 and stage 4. And we want to do practices that are going to get us to stage 3 and stage 4. We want to improve sleep duration. There's other things that we can do to improve sleep duration as well. So a little bit about sleep wake homeostasis and our circadian rhythm. So really those are two elements of sleep, and they're important for us to just recognize because they really do make up our entire kind of sleep cycle. So if you think about sleep wake homeostasis, what it is, it's the balance between the time we spend awake and the time that we spend sleeping. So when we feel tired and when we feel energized is regulated by our sleep wake cycle. Our circadian rhythm is super important, and that's our internal biological clock. So ideally, these two things work together. Circadian rhythm and sleep wake cycle, they kind of work together. So, when our internal clock says it's time to wake up, we have that internal sleep wake cycle, sleep wake homeostasis that says, okay, I feel alert, I'm ready to sleep. When our clock is winding down and it's getting time for bed, our sleep wake homeostasis is saying, okay, time for sleep, right? And there's different biological processes that happen with each of those. A good example of this being out of sync, or there's actually two good ones of being out of sync, but one is newborns. A lot of people talk about how newborns they're awake all night. And that's because their internal clock, so that circadian rhythm, is generally opposite. And so just something to keep in mind. Sleep wake homeostasis, again, I want you to just imagine it as if you consider like a tire. So imagine like a tire for your car. There's a level of pressure in the tire of your car that has to be maintained. The longer you're awake, the more pressure is built up in the tire, and then it increases in pressure throughout the day. When we sleep, that pressure deflates. And so there's a chemical in our body that builds up in our blood when we're awake that makes us feel tired. Sleeping decreases the levels, and that is generally what happens. It's just working a balance between, it's called adenosine, a chemical in our body. Interestingly enough, I always find it really interesting is that oftentimes people drink caffeine or coffee to wake up in the morning, right? Coffee is just such a well-known thing. When I'm tired, I need extra coffee. I need my caffeine. Don't talk to me before I need my caffeine. Caffeine, what it does is it blocks those receptors. And that's how it makes us feel alert and awake. So caffeine doesn't actually, is a stimulant, but it's actually not giving us energy. It's blocking those receptors in our brain, which then make us feel alert and awake. There's a couple things that can impact our sleep-wake homeostasis as well as our circadian rhythm. So genetics can play a role in our sleep regulation. So some people have, potential genes or genetic predisposition that can impact their sleep. Being an older adult, so later in life, generally, you are impacted. Your sleep-wake homeostasis is maybe not as great as it used to be. Certain health conditions can interrupt sleep. Mental health, namely stress and anxiety, absolutely can play a role. Lifestyle factors, which we'll talk about, but substance use, exposure to blue light and electronics, erratic sleep schedules. So if you're traveling to different time zones, if you're a shift worker, absolutely can impact your sleep-wake homeostasis and your circadian rhythm. As well, there are medications that can impact as well. And if you have any questions about this, feel free to just pop them in the chat. Our circadian rhythm, again, it's that internal clock. So it's that clock that tells us when we wake up, when it's time for sleep, when we get hungry. Our circadian rhythm is such an important part of our own health and wellness because what it does too is it affects your body temperature, your hormone levels. It can also impact your immune system. How that works is that we have this nucleus in our brain. So the SCN is what it's called. It's a cluster of cells in our brain that controls our circadian rhythm. And it works really closely with environment. And the reason I'm telling you this is because we're going to talk about how we can tweak our environment to help support our circadian rhythm. So our SCN uses cues from the environment. So light is a really big one, and it keeps our body in sync with the world. When light hits our eyes in the morning, it signals to our SCN to stop producing melatonin. Melatonin is a sleep hormone, and start to ramp up cortisol, which is the wake up hormone. And then alternatively, when it starts to get dark and light starts to fade, our body slows down the cortisol, starts producing the melatonin. Because the circadian rhythm is so impacted by environment, there's so many different external stimuli that can impact our internal clock. Age absolutely is another one, genetics, health conditions, substances, and absolutely lifestyle and environment. And why it's important to know the importance of this and kind of how it can work is because it can make some of the things that we need to do to help our sleep, it kind of like makes us understand why we're doing these things, right? So many people hear whole dark bedroom. So many people hear don't go on your phone before bed or like watch TV before bed. And we never really understood why, right? Understanding the role that it plays in the circadian rhythm helps us to really understand why that would work. So let's talk a little bit about sleep hygiene and the different things that we can do to improve our sleep. So the first one that I said, environment. Environment is a huge one. So cold, dark bedroom is a big one. We hear about that a lot. When they say the darkness, so darkness is essentially, again, what tells our brain to produce melatonin. And so our brain wants that. So exposing yourself to bright light in the morning. And that's the thing with sleep hygiene, with tips that we can do for sleep. I want you to think about it's not just the stuff we do for before bed because circadian rhythm, it's a 24-hour clock, right? So what we do in the morning can actually impact how we sleep at night. And so you'll see a lot of these tips and tricks are things that we want to be doing, throughout the day. And a lot of these start first thing in the morning. First thing you can do in the morning is exposing yourself to bright light. So two ways to do that. Right now, it's light in the morning. And so as soon as you wake up, throw open your blinds. If you have an outside, go outside. If you have a balcony, go outside. Otherwise, just go to a window. Spend a couple moments there. Look outside, take in the outside. If you're going outside, feeling the fresh air, absolutely bonus points. We can't do that for much longer when it starts to get cold. You wouldn't catch me out there. But, getting some light into your eyes is so important because, again, says to our brain, okay, cut the clock on the melatonin, start producing the cortisol, which we're getting ready to go. It's time to wake up. And it almost resets the clock. It almost is like, okay, this is a wake up time. We live in Canada. It gets dark. It stays dark pretty late. So there's two things you can do. So in the winter, if you wake up before the sun comes up, you can buy, they have those, they're called like wake up lights. They're Philips is an alarm. They also have hatch lights. I know a lot of people really like. And they're alarm clocks that light up the room to wake you up. It gives you the light. So it's not obviously as great as the sun, but it gives you the light. The other thing you can buy, they're vitamin D lamps. So you can buy, they're called happy lights sometimes, or vitamin D therapy lights. And they're just a little light box that has a really bright light on them. Putting that on in the morning and just kind of making sure that it's hitting your eyes, that absolutely can do the same thing. It's interesting, those vitamin D lamps. A lot of people really like those vitamin D lamps. And we, again, don't really know how they work, but essentially our eyes, and that's why, so side note with vitamin D. Vitamin D is so important for us. We all know it's so important. In the summer, we all get vitamin D more. We're generally not as deficient in vitamin D in the summer. And the reason being is because it's actually the sun that can give us vitamin D, and it hurts our eye. So the whites of our eye, when the light hits the white of our eye, that's what turns our body can then turn it into vitamin D. And so with the vitamin D lamps or those light therapy boxes, you want to make sure it's kind of hitting the white of your eye. So if I am working on it, like let's say I'm getting ready in the morning, maybe I'm reading the paper or something, I'm drinking my coffee, I put my lamp on. I want it like kind of on the desk or the table, like to the side of me. So I don't want it right in front of me. I want it to the side. So if I'm looking, it's hitting the white of my eye. So either of those, so sunshine or using either of those kind of wake up lights or light therapy lights, start the clock on the circadian rhythm. Similarly, at nighttime, what we want to do is we want to start dimming. So those people who have those hatch alarm clocks, people really like them because they, dim. They have like a bedtime setting. I don't have one, but I've heard about them. Um, Easy thing you can do is just dim the lights in your house. Like, when it's like 8 or 9 o'clock, maybe turn off the overhead lights, pop on a couple lamps, maybe light a candle, and just start to chill out the space a bit. What you're doing is, again, by dimming the lights in the home, you're mimicking the sun setting, which then starts to tell our body, okay, you know what? Sun's starting to go down. Let's slow down the cortisol and let's start prepping that melatonin. So our body's really sensitive to light. Some people, myself included, the alarm clock light, like the light on the alarm clock, like I have the little wake up light, the Philips one, and it has the alarm with the clock numbers. I find that really like that can affect me. I'm really sensitive to the light. And so note that you may be really sensitive to light, but maybe just used to it by now. So definitely something to play with. Temperature is another one. So if you think about us when we were, from an evolutionary perspective, when we lived in caves, we didn't have clocks. We didn't have late night television that, we knew when the news came on, it was time for bed afterwards. The only way we knew how to sleep was we listened to our body and the environment. And so when it got dark and it got colder in our cave, we knew it was time to sleep. Same thing when the sun came out and it started to warm up a little bit, it was time to wake up. And so we haven't evolved from that. Our body still really likes that. And so making your bedroom pretty chilly and dark can also help our circadian rhythm. the guidance on the chilliness of the bedroom, or what to set the temperature to in our bedroom, it's quite cold. It's 16 to 19 degrees Celsius. So it's a little bit chilly. I've gotten my place down to 19.5 because I do find it really cold. But again, you want to think about that cave, right? We are still essentially, from an evolutionary perspective, we still have the body of, living in a cave. And so you want to make sure that you're doing that to help support our circadian rhythm. Noise is another one to think about. So again, anything in the environment that can impact our sleep. So the lightness, the darkness, sound is another one. So some people are really sensitive to sound. Some people will find that sounds wake them up. It's interesting. I did some work with someone who was waking up at kind of the same time every day, and they couldn't figure out why. Like it was kind of like very early in the morning. And so we had them record something. We had them record their bedroom. So we're like, what is going on? Like, I don't understand what's going on. And there was a train sound. But because they were sleeping, all they knew was that it woke them up. But no one knew, like no one really understood what it was. Like no, they didn't have that awareness of it. And so sound is also something. Some people like to wear earbuds or noise canceling earbuds. That's something you can think about. Otherwise, are there ways that you can, if you find that you live in a noisy area, what can you do to minimize that noise? Um, with environment, since I'm talking about light, I'm going to talk about electronics. So electronics, again, we talk about a lot of people, we all love to like scroll on our phone or watch TV or go on our iPad before bed. And so a lot of people are hearing about blue light and the impact that blue light or electronics are having on us. Blue light suppresses our ability to produce melatonin. So that bedtime, circadian rhythm, sleep-wake homeostasis, you know, melatonin production, when we're like on our phone scrolling or reading on an iPad, what it's doing is it's saying to our body we're still awake. So you're slowing down, you're delaying our ability to produce melatonin. So by um by it generally sorry, I just lost my train of thought. It suppresses melatonin production for about 2 hours. And so you it's delaying our ability to get into those 3 and 4 sleep cycles. So a couple ways around it. So the first one, there are absolutely, I think all the phones and everyone, they have that like night shift mode, which is great. Another one you can do, it's a little bit more of a custom. You can turn your phone backlight to red, which has no blue light in it. It's the opposite of it. So some people like that. Um, the guidelines are 2 hours before bed, not having electronics, like reading a paper book or something. I'm a realist, so I would say, blue light blocking glasses, do the red shift, and also just being on your phone before bed can sometimes be a little bit too stimulating. So maybe even trying like, to turn it to put it down for like 10, 15 minutes before bed as a starting off point and start to notice if that's a difference. I saw a quick question come in about sounds, white brown noise. Absolutely, I love white brown noise, pink noise as well. It's just those, those like crackly kind of simple white noise that people use. There's white noise machines. You can just play it on YouTube, different sounds. Absolutely. There's a lot of literature about them being helpful. So absolutely use it. It's a great way to also drown out other sounds. And there's different ones. So I encourage you to play with different ones. So white noise is oftentimes the most well-known one. There's brown noise, there's pink noise. Brown noise is a little bit rumblier. Some people tend to like it a little bit more. I say try the different ones and find what works best for you. Some people love having that little bit of white noise. Some people don't like it at all. And so it really is personal, like personal preference, but there's nothing wrong with them. And they actually work quite well. Are blue light filters effective? to an extent. So they are effective, they're not perfect. So definitely they will help. They're not the most like, not being on your phone for 2 hours before bed or your iPad absolutely is great, but using like the glasses or a different filter, it works. It works. It's not perfect. Lise, is watching TV before going to sleep the same as using a phone or tablet? Yes and no. It is. It is. It's not as close to you though. So sometimes it affects people less. So it's still a bit like any light emitted from an electronic gives you that. And so you're going to get the blue light. Generally, we have our phones and our iPads like right here, and so you're just getting more of it. But like I said, even like the digital light on the alarm clock, and again, for me, I find that really it really affects me. And so it's noticing what's effective for you. If you're watching TV before bed, maybe get some blue light glasses that you can put on, and then you know that it's not impacting you. But again, there's lots of other things on this list. So if it's not affecting you so much, maybe that's something that you're okay to live with. Um, Melatonin, yes, Abby, we're going to talk about melatonin. So I'm going to put a pin in that one because we're absolutely going to talk about taking melatonin. Using a fan, yeah, absolutely. Like you don't hear the white noises. And so, but the fan also is giving you, it's not giving you that perfect hertz, but it's also just, it's giving you some white noise as well. And if it were up to me having to choose, I would prefer you having like being cool so you can sleep more so than that frequency. Barb, optimal amount of deep sleep for health. Everyone's different depending on age and stage of life. We talk about that in the program. Um, Lots of questions here. Okay, so L-theanine and sleep hygiene. There is some evidence for L-theanine. There are some other ones that I prefer. Um, but yes, there is some evidence. Like there's some good evidence for it. Optimal time to be outside in the morning light to reset 5 minutes, like not much, and you can just like be at a window too. Uh, I'm gonna continue. I'm gonna continue here with the talk, and then I'll come back to the questions as well, because we're gonna have time for questions at the end. Lifestyle. So lifestyle is another really big one that is important for sleep hygiene and just kind of our overall sleep and well-being. When we are born, when we're babies, our parents took care of us. We had this whole kind of beautiful, like we had a bedtime, we had, times that we ate in the day. We had such a routine and such a bedtime routine, right? Sometimes you would take a bath, you would get a story read to you, you would have your like lights dimmed, you'd have a cozy room, you'd have your little sleep sack that you would go in. When we started to take care of our own bodies, we tend to fall out of that routine. And so with routine, what we want to do is with sleep, we want to start to build some routine into our days. Our bodies like routine. Our bodies are like a machine. When our body knows we're getting the next meal, when our body knows that there's food regularly coming into us, it works better at metabolizing. Same thing with sleep. If our body knows that at like 9:30 we crawl into bed every night, at 9 o'clock, it's going to start doing the things ahead of time. Our bodies are efficient. So the more routine we give it, the more predictability we give our body, the better it then works. And so when you think about lifestyle, I want you to think about what can we do to implement some sameness in the day. Having a little bit of a morning routine and a bedtime routine, beautiful. Having, rough sleep wake times that are about the same, fantastic. So having those little bits of routines and trying to bring that routine into our day, absolutely huge. Other thing with lifestyle, avoiding caffeine. after noon. So some people say 2 or 3 o'clock. If you have sleep issues, I like to cut it off at noon because I find it just is gonna it's gonna affect you. Like caffeine has a very long half-life. It stays in your body for a long time. And so, cut it off at noon and then you don't have to worry about it. Switch to decaf if you need to. There's still a little bit of caffeine in decaf, but better than a fully caffeinated drink or like a Tim Hortons drink, which has so much caffeine in it, or Starbucks. Um, but decreasing the caffeine, like not having caffeine before noon, gives your body lots of time to metabolize it. Alcohol before bed is another big one. A lot of people think that, alcohol is like a nightcap. It helps me feel sleepy. It does. Alcohol absolutely does. It's a central nervous system depressant, so it absolutely does make you feel sleepy. But what happens with any type of central nervous system depressant, what goes down must come up. So most people who find that, a glass of wine or a nightcap before bed helps them feel sleepy, 2, 3 in the morning, they're wide awake again because your body's trying to get back to its equilibrium. Um, I'm kind of giving you substances already now. Lifestyle, another one with lifestyle is, I'm sorry, I just was going to tell you. So caffeine, alcohol, exercise, exercise and food. Exercise is another big one. I like to say, like, notice how the exercise affects you. If you're going to do a really good, nice restorative yoga class, you could probably do that right before bed and fall asleep. If you're going to do like a spin class, you're probably going to be really energized. And so, noticing how exercise and physical activity affects you, if you find it really relaxing, if you go for a nice walk after dinner, it's probably going to really help you sleep. But if you find that it's really energizing you and you're having trouble falling asleep, shift that exercise to earlier in the day. Exercise is phenomenal for sleep. The more energy that we, push out or burn up, we just can sleep better and deeper. We don't have that adrenaline pumping through our body when you're more sedentary. If you think about also being outside exercise, phenomenal. There's a lot of literature about exercising outdoors, going for a walk, gardening. Um, those are two phenomenal things that are so effective. I don't know if you've ever noticed it, if you've ever had like a day at the beach or if you've been outside all day at a cottage or something, and that night you just sleep so well. It's a combination of being active and being outdoors because the colors blue and green, like being outdoors can reduce our cortisol levels. And so we just are generally more relaxed and the activity burns off the adrenaline. And then eating. So avoiding any heavy meals about 3 to 4 hours before bed. You don't want two processes to work together, right? So if you think about your body, it's downgrading, right? It's going into that rest and restoration phase. And so you don't want to be actively digesting when we go into that. And so trying to shift your heavier meal early and not eating a big meal about 3 to 4 hours before bed. You can certainly have a bedtime snack if you feel that you get hungry, but you want to avoid those heavy meals that are, going to take longer to digest. Supplements are my favorite thing to talk about because a lot of people hear about melatonin and take melatonin and it's not helpful. And it makes like people are like, oh, well, we need melatonin to sleep. So if I take it, how come I don't fall asleep? It's because melatonin, my rule with melatonin, kind of my thought with melatonin. So for melatonin, lots of people aren't affected by it. Like they find that it's not helpful for them. Some people love it and swear by it. And if you do, that's great, go for it. Some people have adverse reactions to it. And some people just find it not helpful. I would rather you take something that helps your body to produce something that it's supposed to be producing. So I always recommend magnesium, particularly magnesium glycinate. There's different types of magnesium, but magnesium glycinate is the most bioavailable. The reason I like magnesium is because it helps our body. Well, generally, we're all deficient in magnesium. We're pretty much as a human, like as a species, many of us are deficient in magnesium. But it's a very relaxing mineral that we need in our body. So it helps us to relax. It helps us to tap into our parasympathetic nervous system, which is our rest and digest nervous system. And then it helps our body because it's resting and it's more relaxed. It helps our body to then produce melatonin easier. And so I'd rather someone take something that helps your body do what it needs to do better rather than taking melatonin. Again, if you take it and it works for you, great, keep doing it. But if you find that melatonin doesn't work for you, I encourage you to try magnesium. You don't always have to take magnesium orally either. So best way to take magnesium is actually there's a powder, like it comes in a powder format. That is, again, the easiest for our body to absorb. You can also use it topically. So you can get a magnesium spray and you can spray it on any type of your body. I like to spray it on the bottom, like the soles of your feet, 2 or 3 sprays on each on each like sole of your foot before bed. Can be really helpful. If you love a bath before bed and you want to add that to your sleep, like your bedtime routine, you can get Epsom salts or magnesium flakes. And those are also, ways that your body topically can absorb them. So you don't always have to take it orally if you don't want to. Um, and then sleep practices are just different things that we can do to help improve our sleep. So, like I said, all of those different sleep hygiene tips, and then doing different things before bed.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you all have a great day.
Thank you all so much. I hope to see you in September.
Bye now.